Hang on. Okay, just gonna... Okay. I am recording. All right, thank you all for attending the Aptus Business Solutions Sage 300 year-end webinar. Firstly, can I please confirm that you can all see my screen? If at any time you experience any issues, please send me a chat message. So if you're having any difficulties right now, you should be able to use the chat in the GoToMeeting box to let me know if you've got them. If you do happen to get disconnected, please try to reconnect. Note that I will be recording the session and distributing it to the participants upon completion. As we have a large number of attendees, I've muted all the members and I'll open the session at the end for questions. Just going to check. No, everyone's got... Yep, everyone's good. Okay. Now that the admin is out of the way, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Stacey Orick and I'm a Sage consultant with Aptus Business Solutions, working with Sage 300, Sage CRM and Sage X3. In today's webinar, I'm going to give you all the information you need to confidently plan and action your Sage 300 year-end in your respective organisations. I will talk to you about what year-end does, the steps you can do leading up to financial year-end, and things to consider, including some tips. We can then do a brief question and answer session at the end. The main purpose of this webinar is to try and remove the worry that some clients express around the process. Your organisations may also have new staff members who are unfamiliar with the process and need training. Also, as year-end is not a common process and it happens only once a year, I'm sure you all have just forgotten how easy it was last year. Aptus are more than happy to arrange a time either via the phone, remote session or on-site visit to come and assist you with this process, but we feel it's important to empower our community to have the tools to perform these functions themselves. Also, it's worth noting that if you are just watching this recording, you should always seek advice from your consultant in relation to anything that is specific to your site setup. The advice in this recording in general is very general in nature. So let's begin. Sage 300 makes year-end processing simple, as it's a date-sensitive accounting system designed to have multiple years of history and allow posting to multiple years. So let's talk first about what the year-end process actually does. Okay. The year-end function in Sage 300 performs the following. Firstly, it creates and posts a big batch of GL transactions to close the income and expense accounts and enter the opening account balances for the new fiscal year. So this is an example of a journal that gets created. It indicates itself by saying closing entries and it uses the source code of GLCL. It then makes sure the opening balances for the new fiscal year for the balance sheet and retained earnings accounts are the same as the previous year's closing balances. So you can see here on this screenshot how by using the 2019 closing, I can see that I've still got the same balances on the right-hand side as what I do have when I've got 2019 period 12. The year-end also resets all the income and expense accounts to ensure they have opening balances of 0 in the new financial year. So again, we can see on the right-hand side, because I've chosen the financial year, 0, and matching it up against there. The most important thing it does, though, is it changes the current fiscal year to the next year, and it allows for you to continue posting in your general ledgers so that you can proceed with the new year. Now that what year-end does is clear, you may also have been asking yourself a number of questions. When should I perform year-end? Over the years, many of my clients have waited until they've finalised all of their entries prior to rolling the year-end. Also, some of them being government departments have had to wait for the auditors to come through. This can sometimes mean that this does not occur for some time, and during this time you can't post any of your GL batches in the system. Thus, you lose any ability to report from your general ledger. There is absolutely no reason for this delay, and we encourage you to perform year-end as soon as possible. There's no reason that you can't line up and do this first thing Monday morning, 1st of July 2019. The only implication of doing your year-end before all entries are complete is that every entry dated pre-1st of the 7th, 2019 will create some extra entries when posting it and can slightly slow down posting. And this is only a minor disadvantage. What happens if I need to put an entry back into a prior fiscal year? Once a fiscal period is closed, entries can still be posted back into prior years, assuming you have rights to open and close fiscal periods. Sage 300 then continues to close off each entry to the closing accounts and create additional posting journals. So to the user, this is seamless. But what you'll notice if you print out your posting journals is that you'll end up with a posting journal report that down the bottom here, you'll see that this journal created an extra closing entry. So that's all that's going to happen during that period of time. Okay, the next question you might ask yourself is, can I post my year-end adjustments to a separate period? Sage 300 functionality supports a number of periods that users may not be familiar with. Fiscal period 13 is reserved for when using a 4-week calendar, so not usually any of our clients are set up in this way. Fiscal period 14 is the adjustment period that can be used for adjustment entries. And fiscal period 15 is used by the system to record year-end closing entries. Period 15 transactions are not available for viewing in any of your standard reports. They can be viewed using BAL close and net close functions in the financial reporter, but only as account totals, not individual transactions. So the benefits of using fiscal period 14, and I get a lot of customers actually ask if they should post entries to 14, is that some clients prefer to be able to separately flag their adjustment entries so that they can prepare unaudited and audited reports. It also keeps your final operating period free from large year-end accounting adjustments, so it preserves year-over-year comparability for that period. Also, using a 14th period means that you can lock the previous year's regular periods to avoid accidental entries, while still allowing you to make adjustments to a previous year while working on a new year. So please note that you can only do those period 14 adjustment entries only in the general ledger. You won't see these as available options in the submodules, and it's definitely something worth considering. After you've considered these questions, there is a number of things that you can do leading up to year end. Select a year end date. Discuss with your team dates for cutting off the entry of transactions in your system. For example, any accounts payable invoices that come in after the 7th of July might be entered with a new financial year date. Also, work out what actual day you might be performing year end and communicate this to all the staff. This is also a good time to talk about putting entries that cross fiscal periods in separate batches so the error batches can be minimised. So I usually talk to users about saying, hey, accounts payable personnel, perhaps put all of your invoices dated pre-1st of the 7th, 2019 into one batch and anything into a separate batch after that. The next thing that you can do is create the new fiscal calendar. On the first day of a new year, you may not be ready to close your general ledger, but you will certainly want to continue processing new transactions in your submodules. For example, you'd like to continue raising sales invoices in accounts receivable or order entry. And so to do this, you need to make sure that the new financial year has been created in your fiscal calendar so that Sage 300 is aware of the new fiscal periods. And this is quite simple, and it's something that you can go straight after the webinar and do this. So I'll just jump straight to my Sage 300 system, and that resides under Common Services and Fiscal Calendar. Okay, so when you come into your systems, it'll probably say 2019. You'll have a little white page here or a green plus sign depending on your version, and then you'll be able to click the new button. Okay, and then hit add. However, please note that if you do this, creating this prior to the new year, then make sure you lock all the fiscal periods until required, as it's really common for users to incorrectly key the financial year and periods during this transition period. We get a lot of backdating at this time. Okay, other things to do sort of leading up to year end is check the number of years of history. Our clients run various versions of Sage 300, and only the Premium Edition, formerly 500, maintains 99 years of history, and the other versions only have 7. However, this is all dependent on what has been flagged in the setup options in your general ledger. So if you again go to the system, it's under General Ledger and GL Setup and Options, and on your posting tab, there'll be a how many years of history. So if your year end is telling you when you're about to perform it that you're going to start to clear some history, you can't get that back. So you need to know that before you actually run the process. So if you check this in the next week or so and you need to think about, well, how can we keep this data? You need to contact someone here at Apttus about creating an archive of your database so that you don't lose that historical information. Check the retained earnings account. And what we'll do is, while we're on that screen, it's a great spot to check for that as well. This is the default closing account, and it's what all the income and expense accounts will close to. Some of you may have multiple closing accounts that you use, but it's definitely worth signing in and checking here. If you need extra help on how to define individual closing accounts on your General Ledger chart of accounts, then feel free to contact me. Always check your chart of accounts, and do this in the next few weeks as well. The most common problem clients call me about is that some of the P&L accounts that should have been cleared still have balances. And what happens here is that the account type was probably incorrectly flagged at during the year-end process, and a user's then gone and changed it, expecting that it will just auto-fix itself, but it definitely can't. Once year-end's been run, the only way to correct a GL account with the wrong P&L or balance sheet status is for you to either restore the backup and rerun the process, or do a journal to correct the balances. Okay, so I would always sort of recommend to users that they come into their GL accounts, and you can either scroll through and have a look depending on how big your chart is, or at least export them out of the system into Excel and have a look through them and just check them all at that point in time. If you need any help with that, let us know. Okay, the next area that you might start to consider is that you might want to turn off automatic posting. Each module allows for automatic posting of GL batches, and if you leave this on during the time when year end has not been completed, every batch that's for the new year will throw an error batch, and this can be quite alarming for some users to start with, and they won't realise what it is. But the error will come up saying something like the new fiscal year has not been created yet. And that's because until year end's been run, nothing can be posted in your general ledger. So to minimise these errors, you can go and turn off those setups, and these setups generally reside in the setup GL integration within each of the submodules. Again, if you need any help, let us know. Okay, consider your auto-reversing journals. This also creates a little bit of concern, is that if you've got any of your journals set up to auto-reverse in period 1 of the new financial year, then this one's going to throw an error batch, and you won't be able to post it until after you've done the year-end function. Okay. Okay, another thing to consider is talking to your IT at this stage about backups and data integrity. Many clients I talk to don't even know their backup routine. They don't know if it's ever been tested. They don't know if the data's ever been restored. They don't even know how long could they go back if they could. So I always say to clients, look, every year, a bit like changing your smoke alarm, have a chat to IT, just ask about your backups, see how often you can. So it's also worth coordinating with IT a time as to when you're considering doing your year end, just in case you want to keep a special backup of your pre-year ended data. So also we definitely recommend never performing any of your year end functions without backing up your data. So only a good backup is only as good as the integrity of your data. So I'm not sure if any of you are actually running integrity checks or if you know how to. So if you have any questions in relation to that, please don't hesitate to ask. Users can perform their own backups by doing a database dump. Again, if you don't know how to do that, please let me know. Year end's also a good time to think about considering cleaning up some data. It's a great time to do it, but it's not entirely necessary, and it should only be driven by if you've got space or sort of speed issues. This might include clearing posting journals or clearing historical data. There might be some screens that you're noticing taking a long time to load up, but you should always discuss the implications of clearing any of this with us, and we can help you archive off a company so that that data can be retained. Okay, I also use year end to have a good look at my month end procedures. The sites that breeze through year end are ones that are running regular great month end processes. Year end doesn't require that you've been doing a special month end procedure, but it's always going to be easier to reconcile off accounts if you've been doing it regularly. So some of these reconciliations that I'm talking about might include running your age trial balance and checking it to your trade debtors account, running your age payables report, checking it to your trade creditors account, doing the same for your bank, your tax, inventory, any of those accounts. Okay, so we're on the home stretch. Right before running year end, the final last steps are print any of your reports. Some clients like to print and file reports at a certain point in time. For example, the trial balance, as this can change and as users start to post back if those fiscal periods are still open. A good tip is to run the reports and save them to file on the network somewhere. Create a folder called, year end 2019 and put it in there. Before you run your year end, always make sure you've run day end. This just helps make sure that there's more included and that everything gets generated and pushed through at the same time. Post all your batches. This just helps that more of the information is processed. Obviously, the system will readjust itself if you do find something that's sort of slipped through and you need to go back and post it, but it's just sort of good practice to check for that. Do your backup. Just in case something goes wrong. As you can imagine, the system's going to close off everything and roll through a lot of work. If something happened during that time and you might need to restore, you want a good backup that you can go back to. Okay, it's also another reason that I sort of say to users, try and do your year ends first thing in the morning, because worst case scenario, you've got the system backup that you could go back to at night. Okay, finally, I've talked enough about all that sort of pre stuff that you can start considering, and let's get down to what we actually have to do. The year end's really quite simple. Okay, so when you've done all your preparation, posted everything, printed everything, got all your backups, all you are simply going to go and do is go into your systems, and you're going to go to General Ledger, GL Periodic Processing, and Create New Year. Okay, this is the big spot to stop. This is where you can check what the system's telling you about what it's going to clear. Mine was set to 99 years of history, so it's coming up with 1923. It's going to clear. I don't think we were using it back then. And then this is the step that when you hit process, this is the year end function. Okay, this is warning me that all users have to be out of the system. So I have got another screen still open. So I'll just go back to that. Now, so what that's doing is it's going off and running through all your accounts and creating a batch of my closing entries. So that's as simple as the actual year-end function is. Okay. Now you've got to that stage though, users think, right, you beauty, we've finished. But there's just a couple of housekeeping things that I like to share after that. Okay. You've run your year end, so what that means now is you can go and post all those batches or error batches that were created during that period of time where you couldn't post. Okay, so get yourself back up to date, get everything posted, everything back in the system. Okay, this is one that I find most underutilized features in Sage is the source journal reports. This is perfect for extracting all the entries out of the system with a certain source code. So if you can imagine you've run year end and then there's been maybe a week of some people putting some more posting journals back in that probably affected the prior year, audit then come in or someone come in and says, we want everything that had a closing entry in it. What I'll find is some users will try and go off back to their general ledger batch list and they'll try and work out all the closing batches that might have been generated and they'll print those off individually. But what I recommend users to do is that under GL setup and source journal profiles, you actually set up a source journal called closing entries. Okay, and that lets you tell the system to pick up anything that's a GL CL. I'll close this. Because that's set up, I can then run a report that is a source journal report. I can tell the system to go and grab everything that has occurred within this financial year or whatever year that I'm running, and it will pull anything out with that GL CL on it. So this is a really good audit report to pull out everything that was performed. Okay, just some final tips before I open it up to some questions and other discussions, is that provisional posting. A lot of people will ring and say, oh, I've got my adjusting journal and I'm not sure what to do. I just want to check it before I post it. So a lot of users may not know that under your GL journals, you should have a provisional posting button. If you don't, it's just a setup option that hasn't been turned on. And what it means is that you could have created your GL journal batch with all your adjustments in it and done a provisional post. And then when you run a trial balance, you can actually say, I want provisional included. So you might run it and you might go, actually, not quite right, go and fix the journal up. You can run your provisional posting again. It just saves you sort of posting and doing reversals. So that's a handy tip. The other thing is that certain third-party products do have year-end functions. Perisoft Cashbook used to have a separate year-end function that's since been removed. Norming do have one. What it means is that you should probably prepare all your norming, run the norming year-end process, which is just a click of the button. It's finalising that last appreciation and then running your financial year-end on your Sage 300 data. But there shouldn't be too many other third-party products, but please feel free to contact us if you've got any questions on those. The other thing with a year-end is don't underestimate the time that you need. Depending on your individual sites, if you have got thousands of GL accounts, because the system has to run through, you saw mine whiz through really fast then, but it's just sample data with hardly anything in it. This could take some time. So if in doubt, we can help you set up a test system and you can do a trial run so that you know how long you need. The importance of knowing how long you need is the fact that you should have all your users out of the system while you do it. Okay, General Ledger is definitely going to say you need to be out. We saw that message when I tried to do it. And it will, just be something that you need to consider. So users all out, the time that it will take, and then the tip that I gave you before, which is do it first thing in the morning so that if something did go wrong, you do have the system back up that night before, or your specially arranged backup with IT. Okay, the other thing that I just wanted to mention is that in the past I have set up for some of my sites a visual process flow, and I'm not sure if you've got any of these set up on your sites for other reasons, but I do have one for year end. What it means is that I'll just go down here. It loads up in your Sage 300 system, and it just means that I can click on Open New Year, it'll fire up my fiscal calendar. I can go and check my years of history. I can just go to my posting page. So it just walks me through the steps, and it just might be something that helps you with your processes for next year if you'd prefer. So I can help you out with that as well. Okay, yeah, so we've reached that point in time where I've gone through everything that I wanted to do. I'm going to unmute everyone and we'll see how we go for questions. But yeah, feel free to jump in and ask anything that you might have.
Stacey, just a quick question. We've made a number of accounts in our GL inactive, some which would have transactions in them. What does that mean with rolling? Is that going to be an issue with the end of year process, or do they need to be made active again?
No, they're fine to be inactive. They won't actually clear or go away because they rely on those number of years of history. So if you've got 7 years of history set in your options and those accounts have been used in the last year, then it can't clear them anyway. So they'll be fine to be inactive on year-end rollover.
Okay, yep. All right, not a problem. Thanks.
Yep. Well, is anybody... Surely I didn't answer everybody's questions.
Hi, Stacey, it's Mary and Eamon.
Hello.
How are you?
Good.
So just in regards to rolling the year and everything, I don't know if this is actually pertaining to year end, but like, you know, bank services, during the year we've had different bank accounts open, but we can't seem to delete banks that we've created in bank services, just to start off with a clean slate for the new year.
Yeah, so
in bank services.
So they've had transactions go through them, Mary?
Yeah, in previous years, but they don't clear when you sort of roll the new year.
Yeah, so the banks, if they've had transactions in those years of history as well, will stay there. And I actually have not seen, there's no sort of inactive flag on a bank. So at best, you're going to be able to probably put into the description field something like please don't use. But let me come back to you if I can find out some other things on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. And also, actually, it's month end when you roll as well. I don't know if it's going to clear at the new year, but when we rolled over the banks at the end of the month, in bank entry, there's still stuff that appears from the years before, but at zero. But it doesn't clear. We don't know why as well.
So
in actual bank entry.
Yep, sorry, Mary, keep going.
Yeah, just in bank entry, they don't. I don't know. I suppose I think, you know, when the year end's performed and you clear everything, that nothing comes forward. But there are still some entries at zero amounts that I don't know where they appear from, but they don't.
Yeah, so there's two things there. Bank services was inherently buggy for years. And so a lot of sites that have been using bank services for a long time have zero entries on their bank rec. So I can help you clear those. And that just evolved over time. The second thing is that the year end just does the general ledger rollover. So if you're wanting to clear history and historical transactions, then there are some steps that we can go through. Banks do have a clearing of reconciled entries, which helps speed up bank recs as well. So if you are all experiencing opening those bank statement screens and they're taking forever to load up, we should walk through some clearing of history with you. It will speed those screens up. Yep.
That'll be great. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, is there anybody else got anything? Well, I must have answered everybody's questions and they'll be right to do your end.
Stacey, I do have just a quick question. Susie from Macris.
Excellent. Hello.
Yes. Hi. Just I've created the new financial year, but obviously haven't rolled. Can we process within those first couple of days of July, just at that stage, if we can't roll on the 1st?
So you'll be able to keep processing if you create that new fiscal year.
More so AP.
Yeah, if you go into Common Services and Fiscal Calendar and create that new year, you'll be able to keep processing.
Yep.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I might not do it on the 1st. I'm thinking I'll be doing it.
No, and look, realistically,
I just hold up accounts payable.
Yeah, and that's you guys could all go and do that straight away, and that is this step. Let me just open up my Sage. You could all go and do this right now. You could go to Common Services and Fiscal Calendar and create the new year. And then no one will ring you first thing Monday morning and go, I can't process an order entry order or an AR invoice. But I do stress it's really important to still maintain and lock the periods that you're not using. It's the most common thing I see in support is that users will start to accidentally get the fiscal year wrong. I don't know why, but they'll start posting into those periods if you do leave them open. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So hopefully that's sort of given you lots to think about. Hopefully not too much information, but I do like to give that all to you so that you can go off and start to prepare. Feel free to give me a call with any questions, and thank you for all attending, and I look forward to seeing you on some of our future Sage 300 webinars.
Thanks, Stacey.
Thanks.